It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. You're listening to us in your neighborhood, from coast to coast, and around the world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joan Herman, author, speaker, and your host. For 4 years, we've been bringing you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me is Dr. Bruce Lipton, author of the book, The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. He's here to talk about how the state of bliss, passion, energy, and health, what he calls the honeymoon effect, is a personal creation and something that we can achieve and make last in our life. Bruce is an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. He's the best-selling author of The Biology Belief and Spontaneous Evolution. Bruce is a frequent guest on TV and radio, as well as a keynote presenter for national and international conferences. He will be a keynote speaker at the upcoming Hay House event held October 26th and 27th at the Javits Center in New York. Bruce, thanks for coming back. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Joan, I am so happy to be here with you, and I so appreciate what you're doing to lighten people's lives out there, and I'm glad you called on me because I have some wonderful things about making life a lot better for all of us.
Well, you certainly do, Bruce. Everything that you have found and you've studied and you've presented, to me, makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the power that we have. So I'm very happy that you're here. A lot of your work deals with a science called epigenetics and the connection between our thoughts and our physical well-being. So with that in mind, what is the honeymoon effect? What is this biology and psychology of creating relationships?
Well, it's most exciting because everybody at some time or another has really fallen head over heels in love with another person. Now, it may have not lasted a long time, but what I really like is to ask people to go back to a time where they fell in love like that. And I ask 3 questions. So basically, I ask, were you healthy when you fell in love? And almost everybody says they were exuberantly healthy. And I say, was life so beautiful that you couldn't wait for the next day to have more of this experience? And the answer is, of course. And basically, really what it comes down to is an understanding that when we fall in love, our world changes. The day before you meet that special person in your life, the world could have been a conventional, everyday, upside-down, trauma thing. And then once you meet this person, all of a sudden, you experience the equivalent of heaven on earth because you feel so energized and so healthy, and life seems to go so beautifully. And you might say, well, wow, that was just what a coincidence that my life got so beautiful when I fell in love like that. And what I really want people to understand is it was not a coincidence, it was not an accident, that it was an actual understanding of how our biology is connected to our perceptions and our beliefs and our experiences to life. So that all of a sudden changing your world by falling in love, you really didn't change the world, you changed who you are. And what's so interesting about it is during this honeymoon period, this is this exciting, vibrant part of your life. And then at some point, almost inevitably for almost all people, that juiciness of the honeymoon just starts to slowly fade out, maybe even quickly fade out for some. And then life becomes normal again. And what I really want people to understand is this, is that experience was not a coincidence, as I mentioned, and losing it, there was a reason why. So the whole understanding is this. There was a mechanism as to how we created heaven on earth, and there's a reason as to why we lost that experience. And the significance is if you understand how you created and you understand why you lost it, then imagine the consequences that then you could have it for every day of your life forever if you understood these things.
Bruce, are these subtle changes happening to us on a conscious level or subconscious?
Well, it's interesting because we create the honeymoon with our conscious mind, and we lose it when the subconscious starts kicking in, playing old programs that most of the programs that we got during our child development years, these are disempowering and limiting or even self-sabotaging. And as a result, when these programs kick in, all of a sudden we start to lose the magic. And it becomes important because if you understand it, then you can actually intervene, change that behavior, change that programming, and as a result, not have a honeymoon for a short period of time, but make it an everyday experience for your entire life.
So, Bruce, how do we get to be aware of what it is that's actually happening? Are there patterns or things that we should become conscious of so we can make the shift?
Yeah, here's the issue. The mind runs the biology in our life. It controls our nervous system, controls our behavior. Then we have to recognize there are actually two parts to the mind. We generally group them as one entity, but the fact is they're two interdependent activities of the nervous system. One is called the conscious mind, and one is called the subconscious mind. The significant difference is this. The conscious mind is connected to you, your personal identity, your source, your spirit. That's who you are. That comes from the conscious mind. The conscious mind is creative. That's the mind that I say, well, what do you want from your life? And the answers that you manifest at that point really come from the creativity of the conscious mind. So, simple point. Conscious mind is you. It has your wishes, your desires, and what you want from life. And I say, well, what about the subconscious mind? I go, well, here's the interesting part about it. The subconscious mind is more or less like a record playback device. It records our life experiences, and then if we ever encounter the same kind of experiences again, we don't have to relearn them like we did the first time. We just push the button and play the tape in response to those experiences. So the difference between the two is conscious mind is creative. The subconscious mind is just programs that you push the button and continuously play them. Now, the subconscious mind is a very powerful mind. It doesn't do little things. It can control your whole life. And so it's actually 1 million times more powerful than the conscious mind. The subconscious mind's programs were primarily installed in our child development years from the last trimester of pregnancy through the first 7 years. This is a period of time where a child is observing the world and its brain is functioning below consciousness. A child actually doesn't express EEG-wise, electrical activity of the brain character of consciousness until, as a predominant state, until after 7. The first 6 or 7 years, the brain is operating a little lower frequency called theta, which is imagination. Of course, that's what children are characterized in that first 7 years, is living in the real and the imaginary world at the same time. That's because their brain is functioning at theta. But theta is also hypnosis. And why is that important? Because this is where we learn the foundational rules of becoming a member of a family, a society, a community. The thousands and thousands of facts about how to be a functional member of a society are downloaded, not with our consciousness. They're just like downloaded as a recording into our brain. The conscious mind is not time-bound. So I say, Joan, what are you doing next week? And your conscious mind leaves the current moment and starts to visualize what's happening next week. Or I say, Joan, what did you do last week? And at that moment, your conscious mind disconnects from the current moment as you sort of review your history. Or if I just say, imagine this, or if you're having a daydream or just a thought, that means your conscious mind is preoccupied in the dream or the thought or whatever it is. And each time the conscious mind is not paying attention to the current moment, the default behavior is switched to the subconscious. So the subconscious is every time your mind's not paying attention, you play the subconscious programs. So in other words, if your mind wanders, you don't just stop. You're still going, but you're playing programs. Well, here's the problem. When the conscious mind is busy and we kick into the default programs of subconscious, by definition, we ourselves don't even see that behavior for a simple reason. Conscious mind looking into the future or the past or thinking, and therefore whatever behavior is playing at that moment, the conscious mind's totally unaware of. It turns out, and science has recognized that our conscious mind is busy in thought 95% of the time, meaning that we're only directly controlling our lives with our wishes and desires about 5% of the time, and 95% of the time we're playing programs that we acquired about who we are and how we behave that we acquired before age 7. What would happen if you actually didn't default to the subconscious mind, but you actually ran your life from your conscious mind with wishes and desires? I go, that's what we now recognize happens during the honeymoon effect. Science recognizes that when we're in deep love like that our conscious mind doesn't wander. Well, the significance is if you and your partner are both operating from your conscious minds at the same time, then by definition, both of you are manifesting wishes and desires. What happens to the honeymoon? Why does it fade away? And the answer is, just as we just talked about, is life gets busy inevitably anyway. Even if you're in this love relationship, you still have to pay the rent, fix the car, do the chores. And as your mind starts thinking about this rent and these jobs you have to do, your conscious mind, by definition, is not paying attention. And at that moment, you start shifting into the automatic default programs of the subconscious. Well, the behaviors in the subconscious mind are not necessarily your wishes and desires at all. Matter of fact, they're usually conflicting with that. You're in a loving relationship. You're having heaven on earth life experiences. Life starts to get busy. And as more and more life interferes and I play more and more of my subconscious programs, we start introducing a whole new range of behaviors that were never part of our honeymoon experience. As more and more compromises come into a relationship, accounting for these behaviors that never were there but now showing up, they etch away the honeymoon. And all of a sudden, it's not the juicy honeymoon, heaven on earth experience. Now it's more like everyday life. We still love each other, but all that excitement, joy, energy, all that seems to dissipate as we start to bring in the subconscious. So a simple conclusion is this. The honeymoon is created when two people are operating from their conscious minds. So there are two conscious minds involved, creating wishes and desires. The honeymoon ends when two uninvited minds, the two subconscious minds, kick in with their programs that are not necessarily positive at all, as psychologists tell us, and we start to dilute the honeymoon with these negative behaviors, and all of a sudden it disappears. If you stay conscious, then all of a sudden you have the honeymoon forever. If I reprogram the subconscious mind and eliminate the negative programs and put in the programs for my wishes and desires conscious mind, then if I'm paying attention, then my conscious mind is giving me the honeymoon effect. But if my mind wanders and I default into the subconscious, but now I've got all the good programs, then it means even when I'm not paying attention, I'm still living in the honeymoon effect. If you understand the nature of how the conscious and subconscious minds interact, if you understand how you can reprogram that subconscious mind, then basically you are now free to create a life where the honeymoon experience is every day of that life, whether you're paying attention or not, because both minds, conscious and subconscious, are aligned with the same wishes and desires and manifesting a perpetual honeymoon experience.
Now, Bruce, we're talking about the honeymoon effect in relation to having a partner or being in love, but can we take this information and apply it to anything in our life, our job, a project, anything, to get that kind of joy and passion?
That's a wonderful insight, Joan, because that's absolutely true. The fact is, when you get carried away and you keep your conscious mind in the present moment, whether it's because there's someone else bringing that heaven on earth experience into your life, or, as you mentioned, something that you love to do, whether it's your job or whatever, a hobby or whatever it is, if you get carried away and this gives you so much joy that you keep your mind present while you're doing this, painting or gardening or whatever it is, if you keep your conscious mind present because you're so happy to be here at the current moment, then that means as long as your conscious mind is present, and they also refer to this as being mindful, that when you're mindful, that means you stay in the conscious control, and that means every decision and every action you make at that moment is really predicated on your wishes and desires, and not from some automatic behavior that somebody else programmed into you. And this is why the biggest issue we all have, and this is why this is the crux of the issue right here, is I go back to that first 7 years of programming. And as I mentioned, psychologists tell us about 70% or so of that programming is negative. Well, the significance is that every time you flip into that subconscious, you are really engaging in a negative or self-destructive behavior, okay? Well, here's the problem. During that period of that first 7 years, not only we learn behaviors by observing other people, but we learn who we are. Meaning, how does a child know who they are? The answer is they consciously can't conceive of who they are. Their conscious activity of the brain isn't even a predominant brain state. They understand who they are by having other people tell them who they are. So imagine a wonderful scenario of a parents who are good conscious parents and loving their children so much that they tell them, oh, you're the most wonderful, loving child, you can do anything, and oh, this is so beautiful, and everything. All those words that come back out, the child is downloading of, oh, they love me, I'm good, and all this kind of stuff. But it turns out parents are unaware of the things that they say are directly recorded in the child's mind. Parents act like coaches. When a child isn't doing well, or let's say a team player isn't doing well, the coach, what do? They say, come on, you can do better. That's not good enough. You know, I know that this what you're doing isn't of quality level, whatever. You know, and when a coach is saying that, the recipient, if they're older, is really understanding, oh, the coach is trying to goad me to do better, to perform better. So I understand what the coach is trying to do. But I said, if the child is not 7 years old, and they're just downloading the words. There's no consciousness. They're just downloading the words. So what do children hear? Most children hear their parents trying to improve them, but the parents are saying what? That wasn't good enough. You're not lovable. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve that. Now, the parents don't mean that as a way of life. They're just trying to make that moment to like the coach. But then go back to the child's point of view. The child's just downloading that. What did the child download? Not good enough, not lovable, not deserving. Well, the significance is then after that, when that child is growing up, what are the programs in the subconscious mind about self? Most of these programs are very negative. And as a result, there's a simple fact, and when we check audiences, because we do with belief change work, 80% or more of the people in any given audience will not test positive to a belief statement of, I love myself. And the reason why is because of all the critical assessment that they received as children. It's critical, so it's not loving, it's criticizing them. Well, why is that important? Well, if 95% of your life is coming from subconscious programs, and your fundamental subconscious programming is you do not love yourself, how in the world can you find a loving relationship with somebody else? And so basically, the biggest issue in finding love relationships is that the largest percentage of people on this planet will not have a subconscious belief that they love themselves. And if they can't love themselves, then by definition, they can't get into a loving relationship. That's just a given. And this is where the issues come from, and this is why it's so important that an understanding of conscious parenting and how we shape a child's future by whatever is going on in that first 7 years needs to be part of our world right now, because almost all of us have a very negative aspect about our own beliefs as to who we are and what we are capable of doing.
The book is The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth by Dr. Bruce Lipton. If you'd like to learn more about Bruce, visit his website, brucelipton.com. Bruce, thank you so much for being here today. As I said, this is very, very powerful work, and I think it's life-changing. And who doesn't want heaven on earth? So thanks for being here.
I so appreciate that opportunity to offer this information, because our world is really in need of a lot of love right now.
Oh, that's for sure. We'll be right back. It's time for this week's Medical Minutes. Joining me today is Dr. Michael Gross, the Medical Director of the Active Center for Health and Wellness and the founder of Active Orthopedics in Sports Medicine. Dr. Gross is the author of the new book, Get Well Soon. Welcome, Dr. Gross. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for asking me.
Dr. Gross, you've written a book called Get Well Soon, and that book talks about achieving true wellness in one's life. What is the difference between health and wellness?
Well, it's a fairly basic concept that a lot of people don't understand. Health, as we define it in traditional Western medicine, is the absence of disease. But wellness is probably a much bigger concept than that. It's more about balance. It's more about preventing disease and keeping you working at your best so that not only are you not sick, but you're the best you that you can possibly be.
Doctor, what are some ways that a person can achieve true wellness? What are main considerations?
I think the traditional foundations of wellness are three things: exercise, rest, and diet. So to really be well, one has to optimize that foundation. An adult has to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night. They have to exercise regularly. We found that a minimum of 150 minutes a week of light exercise will prevent a cornucopia of diseases. Nutrition, a balanced diet that incorporates all sorts of different items, not a protein diet, not a high-carb diet, but a balanced diet that is nutritious, that is divided into equal meals, that provides enough calories to get through the day, but not too many calories to make you gain weight. That's the foundation of wellness. That's feeding the machine and keeping you well. Then, and this is my personal belief, the number one factor is in relieving stress. And not just the emotional stress that we all think about when we hear the word stress, but anything that tends to push us off balance. You have to learn to limit those kinds of stresses, and we have to learn to deal with those kind of stresses.
So exercise, proper amounts of sleep, a well-balanced diet, and stress reduction. Those are the key foundations to living a well life. So what is your advice to someone who's been sedentary, someone who's been basically eating a toxic diet? What is something that someone can do right now to make a change to begin on this new path of wellness?
Let me backtrack just a little bit. Exercise, diet, and rest, those are the foundations. Stress relief is important, but even deviating from any of those things, the first three things will create stress in your life. So stress is sort of the idea that binds the other three things together. How do we relieve some of those stresses? So someone that's sedentary, we want them to become more active, but not so active all at once that creates stress in their life. We want them to increase their activity easily. Maybe instead of driving or taking a taxi or a subway for 10 blocks, maybe they want to walk 10 blocks to work. Maybe they want to take the stairs instead of the elevator during the day. Easy things to increase your activity level slowly. Once you've gotten going, maybe you want to join a gym and work with an athletic trainer, somebody who can come up with an exercise program that's specific for you. As far as a balanced diet, people can start by doing some research online, but they have to be careful because there's a lot of fad diets online. Certainly in my upcoming book, we discuss what we think is a healthy, easy, nutritious, balanced diet to follow. It's important to realize that diet is not just about weight loss. Diet is about maintaining a proper, well-fueled, healthy, well body and mind. And then finally, rest. It's very important to get enough sleep. 8 hours, 7 hours a night of sleep is important. There are all sorts of ways if you have trouble sleeping that one can increase their ability to fall asleep, to relax. You should rest for about an hour before you go to sleep just by reading a book. Avoid exercising or eating too late at night. There are a million different ways one can increase their ability to sleep.
If you'd like more information about how to achieve wellness in your life, you can visit Dr. Gross's site, theactivecenter.com, or get a copy of his book, Get Well Soon, which is available on Amazon.com. Dr. Gross, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back. We all want to live a happy, productive life, but sometimes we need a little help. Our Coach on Call experts provide strategies to help you cultivate effective life skills. Joining me today is Karen Chow, a leadership trainer, speaker, and author. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Joan, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the call today.
Karen, we talk on the show so much about the importance of embracing fear in order to move forward, and I am a believer that fear is one of the number one roadblocks for us achieving what it is we want to accomplish in life. In your experience, where does fear come from?
Well, I totally agree with you on that, Joan. Fear has stopped me from so much in my life. But, the acronym that's attached to it, false evidence appearing real, it's true. I believe that fear either comes from not knowing what you don't know or from having a preconceived notion that something bad's about to happen based on past experience. When I think about all the things I used to be afraid of, and did they all manifest? Most of the times they did not. So it's unfounded.
So, Karen, how do we eliminate this thought process?
I don't think you can eliminate it, nor should we necessarily strive to. It's only if we have fear that we can grow. It's actually a healthy reaction because without fear, you remain stuck and not knowing how to cope until that false evidence, quote-unquote, shows up again. So instead of trying to find ways to eliminate it, I actually created an acronym that I use in my coaching and also to help myself, and it's face, erase, ace, replace. It's a 4-step process that actually works if someone's really committed to learning how to overcome their fears.
Karen, can you give an example of when or how you would use it?
Sure. Let's say for my clients, the number one fear is public speaking. So first of all, we'd work together to identify the source of it, which in essence is really nothing more than a case of the butterflies, right? The thing is, once you've identified the source, you're able to erase it because you realize it makes no sense in the first place. like I said before, it's unfounded. And then once you have that knowledge and you use the confidence exercises that I provide to reverse the fear, you go to work on your speech until you have it the way you want it, and then find a suitable substitute for the original fear and replace it with that substitute.
If you'd like more information about Karen, you can visit her website, KarenChow.com. That's CARYNCHOW, KarenChow.com. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that this information is for educational purposes only and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, you can visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, take part in the book club, sign up for the mailing list, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.